Hello everyone, T.I. Dave here. This is part two from Bryan two's conference call. He did another one last night, and this is it. For some reason, my editing software won't convert to a certain link, and it didn't last time, so I'm having to screen record. But I've listened to it, and I feel like it's well worth it. That's the only reason I'm screen recording this. I know a lot of people will be able to relate to a lot of stuff he's saying about the gang stalking and gaslighting, and that's mainly what he talks about in this episode. Anyway, we hope y'all are holding up and staying strong. Thanks for everyone who reached out in the emails and other places with the kind words and prayers. It's much appreciated. Um, and we are gonna continue speaking with people, but as we have time, so just please be patient. And the ones who have been patient and understood, I really appreciate it because uh, we're targeted too, and we have responsibilities too that we have to get done in between of trying to help coordinate stuff and help TIs with this and that. So we're by no means leaving um, and stopping. We're just taking our time and doing it as we have time. And somebody sent me something that Catherine Horton's channel is going to be started up again. So anyway, enough of my rambling. We're going to continue working on ourselves and doing what we need to do to protect our energy. That way we can continue helping. So here's Bryan 2. Let's see. Oh, I've been doing some changes to my channel, as you can see, with some thumbnails. Somebody told me that it would help people feel more comfortable about telling their testimonies if I started making better thumbnails. So we're gonna see how that goes. It's gonna take a long time though, because I got to make 899 thumbnails, and I still have to arrange my videos in playlists where everybody can see the good videos. Because I have a lot of good information videos, but they're pushed down underneath all the interviews. Like at the beginning, like right before all my interviews started, I was putting out some good information. So I want to get them in playlist. All right, here it goes. Bryan 2.
Good evening. Today is December 1st, 2025. This is Targeted Individuals Are Being Slow Killed conference call. We have a very special guest joining us tonight is guest speaker. The former Department of Defense contractor, Bryan Two, is here, and he's going to give us a bunch of information and his take on the gang stalking, organized stalking, and gaslighting. Welcome to the call, Bryan. How you doing? Yeah, hold on a second, you guys. We had this problem last time. Hold on. Okay, today is December 1st, 2025, and this is Targeted Individuals Are Being Slow Killed conference call. Tonight we have a special guest, the former Department of Defense contractor Bryan Two has joined us again, and he is going to speak with us tonight about organized stalking and gaslighting. Bryan, welcome to the call. How are you doing, sir?
Hi, Michael. How are you? Can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear.
Okay. The reason that you always have difficulty or often have difficulty with your communications, whether it's on your smartphone, your laptop, your whatever, your tablet, is because remote neural monitoring occurs in stages and, or I should say cycles. While passive monitoring goes on 24/7, the actual active monitoring to build the cognitive model of the victim's human soul, will, intent, and emotion. This occurs in stages. So for the cycle to begin, there needs to be some kind of chaos. So we know for a fact we've gone from passive to active. So that means that there are cognitive researchers on this call. Okay? There are hive mind teams that are actively listening to this call. How do I know that? Because of the chaos. Manufactured chaos is used to force the targeted individual, the mind control victim, into forced adjustment after forced adjustment, counter move after counter move, trying to function and survive, because each forced adjustment, each counter move is an evoked potential of synaptic response, which can be remotely measured and integrated back into RNN data. That's why you have so much trouble.
No, I agree with you. That's probably the case in this situation, but we got it worked out, and the floor is yours. Go for it. Let's hear what you got on this topic.
Well, I think we touched a little bit on organized stalking last week when we spoke briefly. But if you want to, for the sake of anyone who's tuning in just now and may not have heard that call, I'll just try to go back and touch on it briefly. Organized stalking. They use the term gang stalking a lot. This terminology, this information warfare, is often used by the intelligence agencies as a method of increasing the confusion rate among victims and among the sheepish masses, so that the testimony of the victim's own testimony of what is happening to them, further discredits their story. So there is no gang stalking. Gang stalking does not exist. Gangs do not possess the resources, money, manpower, etc., to carry out 24/7 surveillance, both nationally and globally around the clock, in city and state, across the nation and around the world. Gangs do not possess those resources. Okay, they don't have that kind of money. They don't have that kind of manpower. Okay, so there is no gang stalking. That's just another tool of indirection to confuse people, to increase the confusion rate, so that the victim's own testimony of what is happening to them further discredits their story. If you remember, Timothy Trespass in New York City was chosen by the New York Times newspaper to do a hit piece. It was an incredible piece. It really was a hit piece. Story on gang stalking, and the title of the story, the news article, was quote unquote, "They see gangs of stalkers." They see gangs of stalkers. You see, they're using indirection. They're using this tactic, this information warfare, such as Havana syndrome or conspiracy theorists, etc. This to further discredit their victims and to sow dissension and to disseminate false information, so that the victim's own testimony further discredits their story. Okay, so let's just go ahead and tell people, stop using that word. You're just discrediting yourself. There is no gang stalking. It's organized stalking, it's cause stalking, and there's other terminology to describe it, but there is no gang stalking. Gangs do not possess the resources to do what is being done. Okay, so if you understand, it's called organized stalking. Okay. And we understand it's basically comprised of three things: it's street theater, cyber theater. There are other. There's vehicular stalking. There are other methods they use. But it's based on various models of deception and manipulation. Dr. Robert Duncan referred to. I no longer have his book. I wish I did. But
I I'll send you a copy, Bryan.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. He described various models that they use, various tactics that they use to target people with organized stalking. And he used, for example, good cop, bad cop, Alice in Wonderland, and there are other models that he talked about that were being used. I don't have his book anymore. Please send me a copy if you have it. But you have to understand that this is based on these models of deception and manipulation are actual mathematical models, because it's a computer. It's a computer dictating and orchestrating. I say computer so people have a supercomputer, so people have an understanding, a point of reference, I should say, to understand what we're talking about. This is not a computer. This is not a supercomputer. These are biomorphic, remote neural networks. They are living. They are alive. They have a will, intellect, and emotion of their own. Okay, I could go on and talk about this. We don't even have access to the hardware and software. We can only, hypothesize about, how sophisticated and advanced these systems are, but we can say definitively we're not dealing with supercomputers. They're way beyond that. Okay, these are exascale systems of remote neural networks. And did you get a chance to watch that 2.5-minute trailer called Eagle Eye?
Yes, I watched it. I totally did.
Well, that trailer does more to explain how the AI system dictates, orchestrates, and controls in real time the stalking and the harassment, the attacks, the gaslighting, and the other methods of deception and manipulation used against the victim each day. That AI system is controlling, is dictating and orchestrating. It sets the blueprint for the harassment and the attacks that are going to be used to target the victim. Why? Because the system is building a cognitive model. A cognitive model, meaning a copycat, parallel, twin personality of the victim's human soul, will, intellect, and emotion, okay? So it needs specific sets of brainwaves. So it sends notifications telling the organized stalkers what to say and what to do in real time. So if you step out on your patio, then the organized stalker across the street will receive a notification from the AI system saying, step out on your patio. And that's called mirroring. Mirroring, okay? That's a tactic they use. If you're driving to church, the AI system will send notifications and allocate resources to that church. It can read the GPS. It's remotely hijacked all of your smart devices. It knows where you're going, and it's allocating resources. When I say resources, I mean manpower, stalkers, okay, provocateurs, perpetrators, okay. It's allocating resources to whatever favorite hotspots the victim has, whether it's, favorite restaurants, places of interest, modes of transportation, etc. Whatever your favorite cafe, your favorite, where you work, where you play, where you go to the gym each day, whatever hotspots, whatever favorite hotspots the target has, the AI system allocates resources to those hotspots in order to dictate and control, to keep the victim in a controlled environment, to dictate and orchestrate the daily harassment. Okay? Now, so that's what's going on with the AI system. The AI system and the organized stalking and gaslighting, etc. Okay, it's based on one thing. It's comprised of two things. Organized stalking is based on the previous choice, reference, patterns. I will say it again. Choice, reference, patterns of the victim. Okay? A pattern of your previous choices. What are your previous choices? The hot spots, your favorite places to go, where you go, okay? It knows where you go for coffee each day, okay? So it'll allocate resources to that cafe ahead of you, or it'll use people that it already has in place, okay? So that's what it's doing. It's basing the organized stalking on your previous choices. They're called choice reference patterns. Okay? What are choices? They're memories. Okay? They're memories. The system is targeting your memory and thought process. Okay? That's why the manufactured chaos is for. The manufactured chaos is to force you into a never-ending, perpetual, continuous, non-stop pattern of counter-move after counter-move trying to function and survive. This is what it does. It's usually the organized stalking, the AI system is basing that stalking on your previous choices. Are called choice reference patterns. Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, it's comprised of two things, and that's situational scenarios and conversational scenarios. That's it. That's organized stalking. That's it. That's it in its entirety. It's just that simple. Every day they're going to come at you either situationally or conversationally or both. Okay? Like, for example, last night, I was so sleep deprived. I could not navigate my way through. I was so disoriented. I could not navigate my way through a simple toll booth. What the AI system did is the vehicular stalkers that were behind me and followed me down the highway from the Indiana border. Okay? They pulled in on the other 2 lanes over in the same toll booth. They jumped out. It sent a notification to them telling them what to say and do. So they literally jumped on a major interstate off-ramp at a toll booth, a multi-lane toll booth. Okay, cars coming and going. They jump out, come over to my car, start yelling and screaming at me about what button to push. They're simply trying to further develop my responses. The fact that I'm having difficulty trying to navigate through the toll booth because I'm so sleep deprived and disoriented, they're going to further amplify the trauma and the chaos. So if you listen to the video I made, posted on my Facebook channel, you can hear them yelling and screaming in the background. But I started recording them as soon as they saw I started recording them, they immediately walked away. They don't care anything about your videos. They don't care anything about it. It's just a game. And then when you point the camera at them, they turn away, but they're told to do that. Okay? That's what they're told to do. It's part of the game. To get you to play the game. They don't care anything about your videos. All right? Now, so people should not go around taking, endless videos. You take one video and don't take any more pictures unless they do something different to you, okay? And they will, because they're not going to let you defeat their technology. Okay, so that's what they're doing, okay? And it's designed to appear common, ordinary, and expected to the casual observer. Okay, so what they're using what's called the floating box. Basically, the floating box is what it sounds like. They're using these organized stalkers to surround the victim, to box the victim in, wherever the victim goes. So as you move around from neighborhood to neighborhood, from city to city, from state to state, that box will follow you. And the organized stalkers, the perpetrators, will break off and pick you up again. And you'll move out of one neighborhood into another neighborhood. And the old organized stalkers will break off under orders by the AI system. And new organized stalkers will pick you up. Okay? Because that's the difference between these community-based agents, these surveillance teams, etc. For them, it's a job. For these organized stalkers, these thugs, okay? For them, it's a lifestyle. It's what they do. It's their job. Okay? They're paid cash under the table to do this. Okay? It's a lifestyle for them. Okay? So it's going on 24/7. So they have to keep you in a controlled environment. And that's what organized stalking is designed to do. It's designed to keep you in a controlled environment, to keep you from defeating the technology. Because if the victim can engage in a pattern of random and chaotic conversational and situational scenarios each day, unchecked, with people who are not plugged into the paradigm, innocent bystanders, okay? They're not plugged in. They're not part of the game. They're not informant provocateurs or perpetrators. They're just going about their daily life. Okay, the system cannot allow you to engage in a pattern a random and chaotic pattern of conversations and situations with those people each day because it disrupts their technology, the remote neural monitoring, by the formulation, which is the collection and cataloging of data regarding the memory references of the victim, predictive integration, which is interpretation of that data, and so forth. Okay, it disrupts all that. Okay, by disrupting the verification process. Each response, every response of the trauma-based mind control victim must be verified. So these models of deception and manipulation, such as what Dr. Robert Duncan called the good cop, bad cop, are based on specific mathematical equations, like principles, like the Occam razor principle, the hypergame theory. Okay, let's just break one of them down. Hypergame theory is a moniker to describe the non-cooperative gaming theorem, quote unquote, non-cooperative gaming theorem. Okay, the model that they're using is that which was first developed by John Nash. He was a patsy used by the government to introduce that technology into the market. I won't go into that; it would take too long to explain it. Okay, but that's what they're doing. This is a mathematical model of deception and manipulation. Why is it mathematical? Because it's a computer. It's a supercomputer that's using that's setting the blueprint to attack and harass you each day. So it's using mathematical models. Okay, hypergame theory is a mathematical model of deception and manipulation. Let me explain. It's literally game theory applied to decision tree modeling. That's hypergame theory. Game theory applied to decision tree modeling. And basically it mathematically proves that by continually and perpetually altering any value in the model, one can continually and perpetually alter that model's expected outcome. Okay? So with mind control victims, the model is the victim. With targeted individuals, the model is the mind control victim. So by continually and perpetually altering any value in your daily life, daily activities, etc., the AI system, by use of the stalkers, the perpetrators, etc., can perpetually alter any value in the daily life, daily activities of the victim, forcing the victim each day into a never-ending game, okay, trying to function and survive. All of that is designed to appear common, ordinary, and expected to the casual observer. Okay, so for example, Occam razor principle states the simplest answer is always the truth. The simplest explanation is always the best explanation. Okay, so if that's true, and it is, then in order to discredit a person anyway, all you need to do is engage in a sufficiently complex scheme or game of harassment. And because the more complicated the truth, the less the likelihood of belief by the ordinary person. That's binary thinking. Okay? The complexity of that harassment will generally be sufficient to cause most people to turn away in disbelief. Okay? It's called, it's basically, it's a never-ending game because there's always a higher optimum to choose from. There's always a next move to be made. So the first thing that victims need to do in order to understand what's happening to them is they need a basic understanding of the technology and tactics in order to try to defend themselves. And that starts with an understanding of organized stalking and the hypergame theory. Okay? Because they're using organized stalking to remotely tie everyone, okay, to these AI systems. The AI system is using a tower, satellite, and mobile platform to illumine the brain of the target with a stream of photons. And then that AI system reads the return trading signal. Okay, so all the nanoparticulates that they've been spraying into the hydrosphere for the last 50, 40 years filters down into the hydrosphere, down into the water supply and the food chain. And then once consumed by humans, it migrates through the bloodstream to the brain, and those nanoparticulates adhere to the neurotransmitters of your brain and then begin to speak to and decode those neurotransmitters of your brain through a process called transcranial brain stimulation. And transcranial brain stimulation is just that. The system illuminating your brain with a stream of photons, a bidirectional stream of photons, and then reading the return trading signal. That's transcranial brain stimulation. Okay? So again, simplest explanation is always the truth. Simplest answer is always the truth. The simplest explanation is always the best explanation. All right? And that's how they discredit people. Give you an example. Can you still hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Give you an example. They put a when I was first targeted back in 2011, and finally I left Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where I had been living for 10 years, and caught a bus west to California, hoping to escape all of it, which I couldn't do. I actually booked a ticket on Greyhound to San Francisco, but I changed my destination at the very last second. Okay, I mixed it up, but I wasn't able to get my luggage back. So while I went to San Diego instead of San Francisco from LA, okay, my luggage went from LA to San Francisco without me. So when I arrived at San Diego, I had to wait for 2 weeks for my luggage to come back because they couldn't find it. My luggage was lost. What had happened was they frequently target my luggage as I travel. What happened was when they finally returned to me and I got it, as a targeted individual, I knew right away, check your luggage. So I opened my luggage right there at the bus station, the camera in my hand, and lo and behold, at the very top of the suitcase was a pair of purple panties with the words "fabulous" on the back. I actually uploaded this to my Facebook page, YouTube, and other social media. You can see it. And you know, that's what I'm talking about when I say the more complicated the truth, the less the likelihood of belief by the ordinary person. So the harassment, the complexity of what they're doing will generally be sufficient to cause most people to turn away in disbelief. Try telling anyone that the CIA and the DIA, the Central Intelligence Agency and the Defense Intelligence Agency, put a pair of purple panties in your luggage. It's not possible. Nobody's going to believe that. They're going to turn away in disbelief. Okay? So these tactics involve repetitive reinforcement, which is one of the weak links in the technology, because that's how you identify you're being attacked. You look for patterns. They're trying to determine, the AI system is trying to determine coherent patterns of thought. So in order to determine coherent patterns of thought, it has to force you into patterns, specific patterns of speech and behavior. To force you into specific patterns of speech and behavior using these situational and conversational scenarios, it has to engage in patterns of artificial memories injected over and over in your mind, artificial emotions injected over and over in your mind every 20, 60, 90 seconds. Okay, in a looping pattern. That's a pattern. Okay, so you look for patterns of behavior, patterns of speech. It has to have the organized stalkers do all of that in order to force you into specific coherent patterns of thought. Because that's what it's doing. It's looking to force you into a series of responses each day, synaptic responses, trying to function and survive. And then it collects all of those. It correlates all of those responses into what are called response statistics. And then from that statistical data, it determines a coherent pattern of thought. Okay? So that all starts with repetitive reinforcement, doing the same thing against you every day, saying the same thing against you every day. The last response of the victim becomes the pattern for the next wave of torture or harassment. That's how the game works. While at the same time engaging in tactics which can be explained away to the casual observer. So they sensitize you. They tie you. They anchor you to specific provocations. Okay, to specific trauma. Okay, they sensitize you to that, to the gaslight, to the stalking, etc. And then when you, the targeted individual, finally responds to the repeated to the repeated daily minor or severe social aggressions, then the delusional or mentally unstable depiction is reinforced. So they sensitize you to whatever it is they're saying or they're doing. And then when you finally lash out against them, verbally or physically or whatever, okay, against their repeated daily minor or severe, quote unquote, social aggressions, then the delusional or mentally unstable depiction is reinforced. I'm using a tactic called hermeneutics to help people understand. So I'm constantly repeating myself. I'm just doing it so people could understand. Okay? So
no, Bryan, this is great. This is just the way you're describing everything right now. If you guys are, if everybody's taking this in that Bryan is saying, he's not only explaining the organized stalking, he's explaining their tactics and why they do the things they do to us. So everybody that is dealing with this organized covert stalking will have a better understanding and can combat your life to survive a little bit better quality life. Go ahead, Bryan. This is great.
Yeah, so sometimes the daily social aggressions are minor, but sometimes the daily social aggressions are severe. Okay? It has to be aggressive at regular intervals to keep you sensitized to the fact that it's happening. That's the difference between surveillance and organized stalking. When the government surveils a target, when they watch you, when they surveil you, they either don't care if you know you're being watched, or they don't want you to know that you're being watched. But organized stalking is an entirely different phenomenon in that the victim must be aware that he or she is being stalked. Well, organized stalking is ineffective. You see, they're using organized stalking to force people into trauma responses, to remotely tie people to these systems, these AI systems, by way of tower, satellite, and mobile platform. So they've got these organized stalkers roaming the city, every city in America, targeting people with the most outrageous behavior. And one guy was standing in the intersection. I knew he was perfect because they used it to target me in the past. This guy was standing in the intersection in Cincinnati. He's standing in a major intersection where an off ramp leads from downtown into the interstate. Okay, so he's downtown in heavy traffic, in the middle of this busy intersection in Cincinnati, and he's waving socks around. He's got these socks full of tennis balls, and he's swinging them back and forth through his legs and over his shoulders and around his waist like you would a pair of nunchucks. Except they're just socks with a tennis ball in it. And then he's jumping and he's dancing and he's shouting at the same time. And he's got all this crazy provocative dress on. He's wearing a big hat like Abraham Lincoln, and he's dressed like he's got a red Indian headdress on, and he's got a clown suit on, and he's swinging these old socks that he tied up with tennis balls, and he's just swinging them back and forth like he would a pair of nunchucks. And people look at him like he's crazy. Okay, he's not crazy. He's told to do that. Okay, he's told to do that, to tie everybody that sees him at that intersection, to force those people that see him at that intersection into trauma responses that the AI system can recognize, the AI supercomputer that's using the tower and satellite and mobile platform. So what they're literally doing is they're using that government informant, who is also a mind control victim, who's never been told that, okay, that they all are, okay? They just won't, the government will never tell them the truth until it's too late. They open their eyes in hell, then they'll realize it, okay? But he's a mind control victim, and they're using his brainwaves as a nexus to remotely tie the brainwaves of everyone around him that interacts with him back to the system. So they're literally having this clown stand in the middle of an intersection and play the fool, okay? So that he can remotely tie everybody that sees him to the supercomputer. So by standing in that busy intersection all day, waving those socks with tennis balls, in a clown suit, wearing a red Indian headdress and acting the fool, he's able to constantly provoke everybody that sees him as they drive by, as they walk by. And that is allowing the supercomputer to lock on to those innocent people. You see, they're using these government informants the same way they're using targeted individuals as a nexus to remotely tie everyone that they come into contact with regularly back to the AI system. So that's why you're seeing
This is priceless. I just want you to know that this information, I'm absorbing it, and I place it, and I analyze it with my life and what I deal with, and you make sense to me, and everything that you say makes sense to me. I learned from you, Bryan, too, and I didn't think there was nobody out there that could teach me about this program because I've been targeted so long, but you're giving me answers, and, I just want to thank you for what you're doing here in this information. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's important that you know that you are very appreciated. And everybody that's listening, you new callers that joined us, this is a live recorded call, and our guest speaker tonight is the former Department of Defense contractor. This is Bryan too. Go ahead, Bryan.
Okay, well, I'm just taking the information of credible scientists, and I'm just copy editing and pasting back what they say. So I'm taking it and making it simple for people to understand, okay? But it's not my information. It's the scientists like Dr. Robert Duncan and others, and they're the ones we need to thank, okay? They've some of them have made the ultimate sacrifice. So that's what they're doing, and so they'll use law enforcement, okay? They use law enforcement against targeted individuals on a regular basis in order to set up and trap the target, in order to force the target to play the game. So one of the favorite tactics they'll use is called bait and switch. Let's give you an example of bait and switch. I'm in the Frankfurt airport in Germany. I've got a flight that's not leaving for hours. I'm there all night. So I find a little nook and cranny in the airport, and I just crawl into that nook and cranny behind one of the couches in the airport, and I can sleep peacefully without lights flashing in my eyes or being disturbed by other people. The only problem is there are no surveillance cameras that can pick me up at that angle. Okay, so the AI system, the government contractors need to force me out of that nook and cranny. They need to force me to move where they can monitor me in real time because the technology depends upon surveillance, real-time surveillance, okay? So if they can't see the target, then they can't verify the target's responses in real time. So what they did is they used a tactic called bait and switch. They had an organized stalker walk up, okay, and sit next to me. And then they had the police come up and confront the organized stalker that was sitting next to me. And then they confronted me. So you see, they used the organized stalker to switch off on me. He was the bait to go after me, to set me up, you see, in a confrontation with the police. That's called bait and switch. There are so many different tactics that they use law enforcement. I don't know them all. I can't sit here and tell you all of them, but that's what they're doing. So if you understand that, what they're doing is they're literally torturing the victim each day. It's a near incoherency. Last night, I could not navigate my way through a simple toll booth. So that, I got organized stalkers. Imagine pulling into a major interstate off-ramp. Hundreds of vehicles coming and going. And it's a multi-lane toll booth off-ramp. And they jump out of their car 2 lanes over from you and come running and screaming at you, talking about which button to push. That's unheard of. You don't get out of your car at a toll in a major interstate off-ramp. You've got cars behind you. You don't do that. And then what did they do? They had the police come after me. So the police show up in the video. If you look at it, it's on my Facebook page. The police come up and start harassing me. They don't go after the people that are yelling and screaming at the same time, that are complaining they can't do anything, they can't get through the toll booth, okay, to try to interact with me, that I had to aim a camera and to start recording to try to force them to leave me alone, okay? They go after me. That's bait and switch. That's bait and switch. They have the organized officers come and harass me, and then they use the police to go after me instead of the organized stalkers. That's bait and switch. Okay? They use it against me all the time. So it's the way they discredit you. I mean, the tactics are designed to appear common, ordinary, and expected to the casual observer. But the more trivial, paltry, fanciful, or fantastic those tactics they use against you each day, then by default, the more trivial, paltry, fanciful, and fantastic your complaints sound, that those trivial, paltry, fanciful, and fantastic tactics are happening to you. You can't even you can't tell other people about what's happening because it's so trivial, paltry, fanciful, and fantastic in nature. No one will believe you. People will just turn away from you in disbelief. So you're discredited. While at the same time, the government contractors are able to use those trivial, paltry, fanciful, and fantastic tactics against you each day to force you into emotional responses which can be remotely measured and integrated back into R&M data. So that's the hypergame theory. Simply perpetually basing one's next move off the opponent's last move. Not basing your next move off the opponent's last move, but perpetually basing your next move off the opponent's last move. Meaning the game never ends. There's always a higher optimum to choose from, so there's always a next move to be made. You see, the game never ends because they need to constantly provoke you into sensory and neural responses, which can be remotely measured, okay, to determine coherent patterns of thought. They need multiple responses from you each day, each week of the same behavior and speech to determine coherent patterns of thought. That's verification. That's called verification. So those synaptic responses, the supercomputer's collecting all of those responses. It's called response statistics. Okay? Until it takes all those response statistics, it correlates them, I should say, into what are called response statistics. And then from what that statistical data of your emotional responses, it determines a coherent pattern of thought. Then it takes that coherent pattern of thought and it starts injecting it back into your memory over and over in a looping pattern. So the memory of the event of the organized stalker harassing you is injected back into your subconscious all day, every 5 minutes. Why? To determine coherent patterns of thought, to pitch you into an action or access sequence, to deceive and manipulate you.
Yeah, I totally do. I've been living this way, man, my whole life. And, it's guys like you with information like this that has given me answers to my own questions. I mean, because I've spent literally 2 decades in the middle of a psyops where these are large groups, thousands of people, or, they take over small communities to run these psyops. And, virtually they use desensitization and the people in our community, plus the contracted, companies like Citizens Corp and, all those contracted companies to do these things, I think. But it's all virtually to map out patterns of our thinking so that they can use those patterns. Yeah, so they can use those patterns of our thinking to later on torture us and run us to our own demise, I believe. What do you think? Go ahead.
That's how they target your family and your friends. That's how they turn everyone against you, your coworkers, your boss, the pastor, the professor. That's how they isolate you. You see, it's never necessary to isolate a person from everybody in the world they come into contact with. It's not practical and it's not possible. It's not practical. They can't do it. They can't in a real world environment isolate you from everyone. You're going to come into contact with people. that are not plugged into the paradigm. They know that, okay? Okay, they can't isolate you from everyone. All that's necessary in order to isolate a person is to find out who it is in that person's life that has the most influence over them. Okay? Family or friends, etc. Okay? And then to target those family and friends to turn them either into perpetrators or into victims, to turn them against you. It's called influence mapping and negative associative conditioning. So basically, the AI system, it data mines all of your phone calls, your emails, etc. And it determines from that data, that statistical data of your communications, etc. It determines who it is in your social circle, your family circle, that has the most influence over you. And then it targets those people with negative associative conditioning to turn them against you. Let me give you an example. They targeted a family member of mine. Okay, and initially she agreed. But at some point her conscience got the best of her. Okay? And she tried not to do it anymore. She didn't want to do it anymore. It turned her into a victim. She got put she got institutionalized for several days. I don't know how many days it was, a week or so, because of the trauma of the organized stalking, the harassment, the directed energy attacks. First, she'd agreed to help, but at some point she decided she couldn't do it anymore, and she went from perpetrator to victim that fast. Okay, so what they're doing is they're targeting your family and friends. And the system determines ahead of time whether they can be turned against you or not. It's not going to go up and ask them and give them a choice. It makes the choice ahead of time before they even know they're being approached. So your family members, before they're ever even approached to try and turn them against you, your friends, the AI system has made a decision as to whether or not they need to be victims or perpetrators. Well, this is a close family member. They're not going to turn against it. It's his mother. So they have to turn her into a victim. Okay, why? Because it cannot allow you, the victim, mind control victim, targeted individual, to engage in a pattern of random and chaotic conversational and situational scenarios with people each day that are unchecked, that are not verifiable. It disrupts their technology. So that everyone that you come into regular contact with, children, grandchildren, husband, wife, mother, father, sister, brother, best friend, coworker, whatever. Every person, okay, you come into contact has to be remotely tied to that AI system. Now, they're either tied there by turning them into a government informant, and they're all mind control victims. They don't even know it. Okay? If you've been a government informant any length of time, you're a mind control victim. All right? The government just won't tell you the truth. Or a victim of the technology. They're turned into a targeted individual. One or the other is going to happen. You hear a lot of targeted individuals talking about their children being targeted, their husband and wife being targeted. Well, that's the reason why. The system maps out your social circle using your emails, phone calls, etc. It determines who it is in your life that's most important to you. And then it begins to target those people with negative associative conditioning, so that every time you come around or you call them on the phone, something bad happens. They have a sudden attack of nausea or a sudden headache. That's a directed energy attack. Or their car breaks down, or their pet dog dies, etc., etc. Until, enough of those bad things happen to those people in your life that are important to you. They begin to correlate all those negative events with your presence. And they begin to avoid you like the plague. They begin to avoid you, or they turn and become your enemy, thinking you hurt them in some way. When in fact they were just targeted with this technology. Okay? So it's called negative associative conditioning. They simply begin to associate all of the negative events that are happening to them with your personal presence, with your personal memory. And they begin to avoid you like the plague, or they become your enemy. So friends, pastor, family, teacher, employer, family members, they leave or abandon you, okay, because of all the trouble you bring, okay, which you're not doing at all. It's the AI system, or those people become your enemy because they falsely correlate because of false correlations that you somehow attacked them and tried to hurt them. So that's how they isolate the victim, the trauma-based mind control victim. The AI system determines beforehand by data mining your emails, your phone calls, etc., all your information. It determines who is in your life that's most important to you. And then it targets those people and turns them away from you using deception or manipulation. Okay?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on here. I've lived this. You're right. They deceive the people to think that you're the problem, and then these people are going to disassociate. One of their many standard tactics, I believe. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's behavior. It's not behavior modification. It's behavior modification to death. For the targeted individual, it's not behavior modification. It's behavior modification to death. Okay, and that behavior modification depends on reinforcers or consequences to everyone that's in your social circle, not just to you, but to everyone in your social circle, to strengthen or weaken whatever behavior they're trying to modify. So think about Pavlov's dogs. Pavlov's dogs, okay? That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about with behavior modification. Okay? So a kid learns to open a box to get the cookies. Okay? He's rewarded by opening that box. He learns how to get the cookies out of the cookie jar. Okay? But he also learns to avoid touching the hot stove. How? Behavior modification. By positive and negative reinforcers or consequences that strengthen or weaken that behavior, he learns the hard way or the good way. But with targeted individuals, it's not behavior modification. It's behavior modification to death. Okay, people don't want to hear that, but that's what's happening. Okay, so with negative associative conditioning, it's the same way. It's physical or psychological negative reinforcers or consequences against the family member or friend every time you come around, every time you attempt to touch base with them by email or phone call or whatever, something bad happens. They have a headache, they have nausea, their dog dies, their car breaks down. Okay, something bad happens. Those are reinforcers, those are consequences. Each time you come around or try to contact them, that begins to reinforce, okay, that begins to, they begin to falsely correlate you to all those negative reinforcers and consequences, and they turn away from you and want nothing else to do with you because they don't need the trouble and the headache, or they become your enemy. Okay? So, for example, in Somerset, Kentucky last month, a target individual walked across the street, gunned down his neighbor. He killed him. When the police arrived and asked him why he did it, he said, well, my neighbor was attacking me with directed energy weapons. Well, it wasn't his neighbor. Okay, how do you know that? I know it because they don't give the public access to this technology. Okay, and even if they had access, they wouldn't have the experience and expertise necessary to operate such sophisticated and advanced systems. Okay, weapon systems, augmented reality, brain to computer interface, brain to brain interface, brain to cloud interface. They don't know anything about all that. So it wasn't his neighbor. Okay. But each time the neighbor would come home from work each day and pull in the driveway at 5 o'clock, the AI system would simply modulate the phase, the frequency, and the amplitude of the stream of energy and would increase the pain and trauma so that every time the neighbor drove up in his driveway, the AI system just attacked the targeted individual with more pain and trauma until the the target individual, began to correlate all of that pain and trauma with his neighbor's presence. And then he turned and became his neighbor's enemy. Deception and manipulation. It's called indirection. Okay? And he went down, went across the street, killed him. Okay? So So that's what I'm talking about. When some negative or terrible event continues to happen to them enough, that person begins to falsely associate, falsely correlate you with all those negative events and begins to avoid you or becomes your enemy. And after it happens enough times, that person will falsely correlate you to those physical or psychologically painful events and will avoid you like the plague, or will do like that guy from Somerset, Kentucky, turn and become your enemy. In his case, he killed his neighbor, when his neighbor had nothing to do with the directed energy attacks. He may or may not have been involved in the stalking and the harassment, but he wasn't attacking him with directed energy. Understand?
Oh, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. I want to go back to what you were saying, how the AI system evaluates our social network, and it wants to see how, they evaluate the people that it can turn against us and not turn us against us. And just by hearing you, saying that tonight, I'm a person in my lifetime, I've been isolated for 8 years, total no friends, no family. And over a period of 15 years, they've literally murdered off my family. My mother and my father both terminal cancers. My mother dropped dead September 18th, the same day the CIA was created. The CIA was created September 18th, 1947, and my mom dropped dead in New Philadelphia, Ohio, September 18th, 2016, of an induced heart attack. So there's no coincidences between me being targeted by the Central Intelligence Agency and them, part of the psychological torture, affiliating my mother's death with their birth date, But you're giving me answers, and that's really important to me because they do have a system that they use to virtually isolate the victim, the targeted individual, and they will do whatever they got to do to get that target into isolation, and that's been my case. So go ahead, Bryan.
We used to say target individuals, but now everybody's targeted. Millions of victims and don't even know it in America alone.
Yeah.
But they do the same thing to me. This phone call right now is painfully distorted to listen to. I can still understand you because I speak English, but all of your words painfully distorted. I didn't have hearing loss before the directed energy torture began in 2011. I didn't have heart problems before the directed energy attack started in 1997. Okay? All of that. Like what they're doing with my heart is the same thing they're doing with other people's heart, so that the heart rate monitor can't pick it up. It's a partial inflation, deflation. My heart will inflate and deflate partially at extremely rapid speed. Extreme rapidity. Until eventually the heart just gives out. And it looks like, well, they have all the medical doctors say, oh, well, it's just a normal heart attack. No, it wasn't. Normal stroke. No, it wasn't. No.
Yeah, it's a common pattern. If you look at the whistleblowers over the past that have suffered, like Dr. Rendell Kilby, she dropped dead of an induced heart attack. You said that Robert Duncan, it was his heart as well. I mean, it's common, I think, for them to target the heart. And the directed energy forces the heart into palpitations, and over a period of time, it does exactly what Bryan's describing. It weakens the heart.
Palpitations. These aren't palpitations. These are, the only way I know how to describe it is an extremely rapid micro flutter. Okay? So the heart rate monitor can't pick it up. But listen, they target organs of control. That's why they destroyed my hearing. That's why they damaged my heart. Because they target organs of control. You see? So when you first target it with this technology, the system, the AI system using specific software programs, it begins targeting you first by targeting all the outward ports of your body. So it starts with sight, touch, taste, hearing, smell, and it uses trauma and chaos to do that. So it uses a pain stimulus to map out and reverse engineer the sensory and neural pathways of your brain and central nervous system, okay, to determine the correct sensory and neural pathways of your autonomic and sympathetic nervous system. Once it does that, it targets those specific sensory and neural pathways, okay, of your autonomic and sympathetic nervous system to target and damage and destroy organs of control. Hearing, your hearing is an organ of control. Your heart, that's an organ of control. They target organs of control. That's why all these people actually syndicated TV show. Think about that.
Yeah, agreed.
No,
I totally agree.
No, and what's happening is called it's so important. Somebody write this down. Okay, these 5 words. And remember what I'm going to say. It's called a parallel rediscovery of controlled technologies. Parallel rediscovery of controlled technologies. Okay, PROCT. Parallel rediscovery of controlled technologies.
And just what is that supposed to mean?
Well, when the government wants to release a technology onto the market after it's been using it for a long time, okay, when it wants to release that technology into the market, okay, to further achieve whatever it's trying to do, okay, to enslave the American people or to improve the economy or whatever they're doing, okay, when the government wants to take a top secret technology they've been using and they want to introduce it into the market, what they do is they find a point man or a patsy, and they make it appear like it's a new discovery, a new innovation. Okay? Well, so-and-so, Dr. So-and-so, the scientist at Yale, he discovered the microchip. No, he didn't. He's a point man. The government just gave him the technology. Okay? Another person named John Nash, okay, the famous mathematician, Harvard professor of mathematics, who they made a movie about, A Beautiful Mind, starring Russell Crowe. John Nash was a patsy. He wasn't a point man. He was a patsy. He never knew that he was being deceived and manipulated to introduce the hypergame theory, the non-cooperative gaming theorem, onto the market. In fact, when they diagnosed him with schizophrenia, just like they did me. I said I was being followed. All these people were following me, and they threw me in the mental institution 4 times. I finally stopped trying to go to the police for help, because I realized every time I do, they throw me in the mental institution. They threw me in the mental institution 4 times before I stopped going to the police for help. Now I don't even talk to the police without a camera in their face.
I did not know that. I've been following you for years. I did not know that. Yeah.
Yeah, no. They threw me in the mental institute and diagnosed me with schizophrenia. And I'm not schizophrenic. Anyone can listen to me and tell that. My speech is not blunted. My speech is not rapid and pressurized. I'm not blunted. Okay? There are other. I don't fit into that category at all. But that's how they discredit their victims.
They did the same, Bryan. I want to say to you, they did the same thing to me. They falsely diagnosed me with agoraphobia, the phobia of people, and then they stalked me with thousands of people.
Well, understand that these organized stalkers aren't dedicated to any one TI, any one victim. They're dedicated to all TIs that move through their area of operation. So, you move into their neighborhood, they stalk you. And when you move out of their area of operation where they live, work, and play, they break off. And others pick you up. So the only people that are really dedicated to the victim are the hive mind teams and the surveillance teams. Very few. I'll get into that. First of all, let me finish with parallel rediscovery of control technology. Okay, so what happens? Elon Musk is a perfect example. Elon Musk is a point man. All of his companies are based on formerly top secret technologies of the military and Department of Defense. SpaceX, Neuralink, Starlink, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. All of these were once top secret technologies of the government, of the Department of Defense. And they released them onto the market through the parallel rediscovery of controlled technologies. So it looks like Elon Musk is this brilliant businessman who discovered a great innovator, a great discoverer. No, he's not. It's the government. It's the government using these billionaires as point men or patsies for the parallel rediscovery of controlled technologies. Look at the guy that owns, the billionaire that owns OpenAI. I can't remember his name. He and his husband, there's a news article, he's gay. He and his husband are now actively moving forward with the development of transhuman babies using synthetic genomes. They're doing that now. Okay?
That's
and they're introducing all. But the government's been doing it for 50 years. There are people right now walking around among us who were never born. They don't have any mother or father. They don't know that. They think they're a normal person. They don't know that they're not even human. They're not even partially human. They're not even 1% human. There's nothing human about them. They're not human. They're transhuman. They're created out of synthetic genomes. So what they do is they take the real genomes out of the DNA. They take the real genomes. They remove them, and then they replace them with synthetic genomes. So they can create these super soldiers, or they can create specific characteristics, people that are really smart, really strong, really fast. Or they have people that have blue eyes and blonde hair. Designer babies, they're called designer babies. It's CRISPR-9 technology using Castle Lakes, okay? CRISPR-9 technology. The government's been doing it for 50 years. It was fully underway when Dolly, the goat, Dolly the sheep was introduced to the world as the first cloned animal. That wasn't the first cloned animal. The government had been doing that for decades. That was the parallel rediscovery of controlled technologies. Why? Because the Illuminati, the Luciferian elite, are behind all of this, and they love to abstract symbolism to communicate with each other. Okay? So, for example, the dire wolf that was just created a few years ago. Okay, 50 years after 25 years after Dolly, 35 years after Dolly. Notice that's also a white animal. This is a wolf. You see the abstract imagery and symbolism, the sheep and the wolf.
Well, these people are disgusting to some of the things they've done.
It's called the parallel rediscovery of controlled technologies. So they're using these billionaires to do that. So what you'll have is Alex Jones or Joe Rogan or somebody else get on television and they'll say, well, they're doing all these atrocities and Bill Gates is behind it all. He's funding everything. That's BS. That's total nonsense, okay? It's not happening. Bill Gates is just the point man. He's the patsy. He knows what's going on. He's the point man for the parallel rediscovery of controlled technologies. The government, the American government, the CIA, the Department of Defense are using these billionaires to introduce all these technologies into the market to turn America from a police state, from an electronic concentration camp, into a psychotronic concentration camp. Okay, that's what they're doing. So when you hear Alex Jones get on there and start talking about, well, all this is happening, well, guess what? It really is happening. And evil aliens are behind it. Well, that's nonsense. Bill Gates is behind it all. It's George Soros again. He's at it again. That's total nonsense. They're just the point men. They're just patsies. They're just being used. These billionaires are being used by the government to introduce top secret technologies. Because otherwise people would say, where did this technology come from? Where all this AI come from that suddenly appeared out of nowhere in 2023 as if it just materialized out of thin air? Now, they've been doing this for 50 years. They've been torturing and murdering people for 50 years to build this technology. It's called a parallel rediscovery of controlled technologies. Okay?
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Brian, I was wondering if you could talk to the people and myself about how these PSYOPs teams and these organized stalking contracted companies take over apartment complexes and communities and stuff like that. Because
I did that. We did that last week. Remember, if they'll listen to the recording last week, they'll see how that's done. Okay. First of all, they need to go back and they need to look at that 2.5-minute video trailer, that movie trailer called Eagle Eye. I think it was a 2008 movie. Some big stars in it. It was a pretty big movie at the time. That movie trailer, just watch 2.5 minutes of it online on YouTube. You'll see how the AI system directs and orchestrates everything. Then you've got the fusion centers, the community-based agents, the surveillance teams, et cetera, all the way down to the organized stalkers at the street level. But they'll need to go back and look at that, listen to that video, because it would take too long to go over all that again. In order to understand how they're infiltrating these community-based agents, especially these community-based agents. They really need to go back and listen to that. Last Monday that we did last Monday, and we talked about that at the end of your recording. We talked about that for about 20 minutes. But these community-based agents are basically the enforcers. They're always prior government, prior military, prior law enforcement. And when they leave or retire from the military or the law enforcement, they keep their clearance. That's the key thing to understand and remember. They keep their clearance. They're community-based agents. These former law enforcement, these former military, they take up secondary occupations that hides, that allows them to disguise their illegal activities, like private detective. Almost every private detective is a community-based agent. I'm convinced of it. Okay? And if they're not, they will be after they get off the phone with you. They'll turn them into one. Okay? So you can't call a private detective for help in anything. They're almost every one of the community-based agents that are targeting people. First, it was activists, dissidents, and whistleblowers, targeted individuals. Now it's just everybody. But they're the enforcers. Everything's orchestrated and dictated by the AI system. It lays out a blueprint each day. The community-based agents enforce that blueprint, whatever they're doing against the victim in real time. Okay? Using smart city technologies, for example. They coordinate, they analyze, they enable, they direct everything. But they're simply the enforcers of the organized stalking. Then below them you've got the surveillance teams. Those are also government contractors, prior military, prior law enforcement, etc. Keep their clearance. Okay, they're government contractors. Okay, they work for Raytheon. They work for Lockheed Martin. These are subcontractors working for government contracting companies. Okay, they're the Department of Defense, but they're also used to dovetail with local law enforcement agencies, to use those local law enforcement agencies and the police informants that they control, the informant provocateurs, the police informants, okay, that the local law enforcement controls in each city. The surveillance teams and the community-based agents use those police informants to do their dirty work. So in every city, every town in America, there is an army of informants, and they just turn those informants into provocateurs. Okay, that's how it works. But I want to talk about, before I get off the phone, I want to talk about how to defeat this technology. There's so much to talk about. We couldn't talk about it all in one. And if we did 10 calls, we couldn't talk about it all. This technology is defeatable. I sent you some information. You could share the links with your listening audience. And how many people are listening now?
Right now we got 13 on the call, and I'm going to put a link in the chat room about what Bryan is about to describe to you guys, okay?
So one of the ways you defeat their technology, Dr. Robert Duncan went into great detail about this, is understanding that because trauma-based mind control technologies in general, are based on three things: neuroscience, psychology, and satanic ritual abuse. Doesn't always involve Satan, but it does involve ritual abuse. And if any one of those three elements fail, then their technology fails. We can't do anything about the neuroscience or the psychology. We don't have access to the hardware and the software. Okay, the brain-computer interface, the brain-to-brain interface, the brain-to-cloud interface. And they're using for censorship, cognitive containment. They're using for memory management, blocking real memories and injecting fabricated or falsified memories. That they're using for direct behavioral control. But you talked yesterday about last week. You talked about how people are engaging in activities every day now, and they don't even know that they're controlled. They don't even know that that they're mind control victims. They don't even know they've been turned into basically robots or whatever they wanted to achieve with them.
That is correct. That is totally correct.
That's called direct behavioral control. Censorship Censorship is them censoring your memory and thought process. Them using the technology to censor your memory and thought process, using thought filters, specialized software, and using thought-triggered attacks to block real memories by injecting fabricated or falsified memories, to block real emotions by injecting fabricated or falsified emotions, artificial brainwaves. That's censorship. Censor your daily activities, censor your thoughts, okay? Cognitive containment. That's memory management. But direct behavioral control, we never did talk about that. I never once talked about it in years. I've been talking about this since 2013. Never once talked about what does direct behavioral control mean. First, you need to understand that the AI system uses a computer multiplexer to route the signal to a tower, a satellite, or a mobile platform. Okay, we talked about earlier about illuminating your brain with a stream of photons and reading the return training signal. It does that through use of a computer multiplexer. The AI system uses that computer multiplexer to route the signal to a tower, satellite, or mobile platform, which in turn, the tower, satellite, or mobile platform then relays the signal to the digital receiver, similar to how cell phone technology is deployed. So the digital receiver is tracking pinpointing in real time, just like a cell phone, except with CIA mind control technologies. The digital receiver is not a phone, it's a human brain. Okay? So you understand that they're targeting you with this fabricated falsified stream of energy. It's an AI system to manipulate, to interfere with your normal memory and thought process. Once you become dependent upon those artificial brainwaves, upon those memory, those fabricated falsified memory injections, those fabricated falsified motivational impulses, okay? Once you become dependent upon that, at higher levels or lower levels, where you have a strong urge or desire at higher levels, it's a high frequency attack. Where you have a low urge or basic motivation at baseline levels, it's a low frequency attack. That's the stream of energy they're targeting you with. Once you become dependent upon these fabricated or falsified emotions and memories, okay, meaning you believe that those impulse injections, you believe that those artificial memories are your own, you've become dependent upon it. Have used repetitive reinforcement enough against you that you can no longer determine the real from the artificial. Okay, at that point, the AI system, that's what I mean when I talk about the AI, before about the AI system's output. Okay, this stream of energy contains data. The stream of energy they're eliminating your brain with contains data. Okay, and that's the system's output. These artificial brain waves. Okay, or at least even if you haven't become dependent, but they still believe your responses to it are consistent. Okay, in other words, response statistics determine coherent patterns of thought. So you're not fully dependent upon the system yet, They haven't achieved direct behavioral control over you yet, but they're close. They see that your responses are consistent. Okay? At that point, they begin to fabricate all these subconscious responses, these subconscious emotions, these subconscious emotions, the indicators of honesty or dishonesty or positive recognition or anxiety, whatever they're using against you, to use those artificial brainwaves to convince you that the emotions or the memories are your own. In other words, you become dependent upon the system's output. You now believe that these artificial brainwaves are your own normal brainwaves. You believe you believe that the memories are your own. They were your own. They're now owned by the computer, which any set of brainwaves can be remotely captured, held, and perpetually replayed in your brain. Any set of brainwaves. So the AI system just captures your own brainwaves. It verifies it, and then it holds it, and then it ejects at the speed of light, using your own memories and emotions against you. They were your memories. They were your emotions. They're now owned by those brainwaves are now owned by the computer. It just keeps injecting your own memories and emotions against you. It just keeps using your own emotions and memories against you to censor your normal memory and thought process. So you can't have normal thoughts. You can't have normal memories. You become dependent upon that. You're now convinced that these impulse injections, love, hate, or not love, they can't fabricate that, okay? But fear, remorse, regret, guilt, anger, rage, whatever response they were able to verify and then now able to remotely capture and inject, okay? You believe those brainwaves are your own. You can't tell they're now artificial. There's no way now for you to determine the real from the artificial. You become dependent upon those impulse injections. You become dependent upon those fabricated, falsified memories. The emotions that are artificial, you now believe are real. The memories that are artificial, you now believe are real. Okay? At that point is where they achieve direct behavioral control over you. You have come to believe that the fabricated responses are your very own. When you are unaware of that constant mental manipulation is when the AI system is able to shape your thoughts and behavior using these artificial brainwaves. So it uses your own thoughts and emotions, your own previous memories, your own previous motivational impulses against you to block your normal memory and thought process. So it uses your former memory and thought process, the memory and thoughts you had yesterday. It uses those against you today to block your current memory and thought process. Okay? So you now believe that all these mental suggestions that are happening, that are being injected into your mind, you think that they're your own thoughts. You think they're your own memories. You think they're your own emotions. You think they're your own sensations. When they're not, they're artificial. So you've now become an automaton. You've now become, they're not able to control you. They're not able to shape your behavior and your thoughts, to restrict your behavior and your thoughts by blocking your real memory and thoughts, by using artificial memories and thoughts. They've now, once you believe those artificial responses are your own, they have now achieved direct behavioral control over you. You understand?
Oh, I do. And I think it's very important that everybody takes and absorbs everything that Bryan's putting in here, because he's virtually explaining the whole program, right down from the organized stalking and the reason behind the things that they do, really to map patterns of our thinking. And then here's my big hang up, is this mind control. This whole program really comes down to what Bryan is saying, trauma-based mind control, part of the depopulation program. Okay, and they have this technology that they have recorded every thought that you have, and they isolate the target in the end. And then what they do is they recorded every pattern of thinking that you have thought over the last 10, 15 years. And the AI system will then replay your own thought that you originally had back into your mind. So when you had the thought to get a snack, all right, now the AI system is replaying your own thought back into your mind, and it can cause you to overeat. You'll find yourself isolated because this program isolates you, and not even realizing that the thought that is making you smoke, drink, overeat, any negative impulse, anything that you do that is bad for you could be an induced thought that was a recorded thought. So,
Any bad habit.
Exactly.
Any bad habit.
I just want to say this, and I'm about done. It's really important that you not only police your thinking for patterns, but you police your day-to-day activity to see what you're doing each day that is unhealthy for you, and see if your thinking is what's causing you. And that's how they control you. And without this information that you're getting tonight, you would never even be aware that your thought, it might not be yours. Go ahead, Bryan.
The system is copying using a stream of energy, a bidirectional stream of energy, okay? It's illuminating your brain with photons, with a stream of photons. And then it's reading the return training signal. It reads all your brain waves at the speed of light. Energy travels at the speed of light. It attacks you at the speed of light, okay? So it copies those, and then it just holds them, and then they're called thought-triggered attacks. So you start thinking, so here's an example, okay? So you're in bed with your wife. You lean over and kiss her goodnight and say, "I love you, honey." Okay? The system captures that. It captures the memory of the event, all the brainwaves, the entire set of brainwaves, not just the memory of the event, but also the associated impulse of love or lust or whatever you felt. Okay? The system captured that kiss, "Good night, honey, I love you," to your wife. It remotely captured those brainwaves from you, okay? And then all day long, next day, it just keeps injecting that memory of your wife. "Good night, honey, I love you." So every time you think of your wife, it will inject that kiss, that memory of that event, okay? So these are called thought-triggered attacks. So your wife calls and says, "Pick up some groceries on your way home." Okay, immediately you start having thoughts about that kiss the night before. 30 minutes later, you stopped off at the grocery store. You're on your way home. Your wife calls, "Oh, hey, honey, remember to pick up the dog at the vet on your way home." "Okay, honey, I love you. I'll talk to you later." Okay. Immediately you think about last night's kiss in bed. And "I love you, honey." You have the same memory. Every time your wife comes up in your thought process, your memory and thought process, the AI system takes you back to that event by replaying the same brainwaves. So if you had an argument with your spouse last week, the system captured that. It not only captured the memory of the argument, but the associated impulse of agitation and rage, okay? And envy or jealousy or whatever. Okay, and now every time your wife comes up for whatever reason in conversation or in situation, the system attacks you with the memory of that event, of that argument. So every time you think of your wife, you begin to burn with rage. Any bad habit it will use against you. If you have an eating disorder, it will make you eat more. It's a weapon system. If you have a smoking problem, it'll make you smoke more. If you have a drinking problem, it'll make you drink more. If you have a gambling problem, it'll make you gamble more. Okay? If you have a drug problem, it'll make you do more drugs, simply by achieving direct behavioral control over you with these fabricated, falsified memories and motivational impulses. It turns your own your own bad habits into a weapon. Neuroscience has been weaponized. Neuroscience is no longer just a field of medicine. It's crossed the threshold of medical science and is now a chief weapons platform used by the major intelligence agencies of the world. Okay? This is a weapon system. What they're doing is they're weaponizing whatever. If you have a lust problem, a pornography problem, it'll make you burn with lust more. It'll make you masturbate more. It'll make you watch more pornography. It's turning whatever bad habits you have against you to destroy you, to cause you to destroy yourself. It's a weapon system. It's designed to turn the victim into a weapon who will inflict destruction upon others or who will self-destruct. Okay? Remember, there in your own city of Las Vegas, the Las Vegas shooter killed 62 people, and then he injured over 800 other people. Okay, with all those weapons he had in his hotel room, firing down into the crowd during that concert, he killed 63 people, and he injured over 800 people. Okay, and then what did he do? He self-destructed. He inflicted destruction upon others, killed and injured all those people, and then when the police reached his room, he turned the rifle on himself and he self-destructed. He committed suicide. They can force you to commit suicide. They can overpower your impulses. They can use sleep deprivation towards you. What they do is they use sleep deprivation. They just place you into a state of functional disorientation where you can't function. You're just comatose, but you're still awake. You can't sleep. And then they use what's called electromagnetic hypnotism to cause you to put a gun to your head, like they did the Assistant Attorney General of Alabama, or to hang yourself, or to jump through a window, or whatever. It's called electromagnetic hypnotism. That's achieved through severe sleep deprivation torture. Their technology is most effective at theta state, Theta, theta, 4 to 7 hertz. That's theta. 4 to 7 hertz. That's anything below 4 hertz, that's delta. That's sleep. So what they do is they keep you right there at 4 hertz. They don't let you go below 4 hertz. The system uses energy to keep you just above 4 hertz, where you're in this semi-conscious, sleep-deprived state. That's where their technology is most effective. And then they just talk sleep you, okay, to hypnotize you. For example, I have to get off the phone after this, but Dr. John Hall's fiance was targeted. Every night she was being brutally raped. She would go to the hospital. The doctors would confirm the rapes were happening. She suffered vaginal scarring because the rapes were so severe. Her vagina was scarred. So it wasn't a question whether she was being raped about. They had the medical evidence. The question is who was doing it and why, and how were they doing it? Because once she began to complain and have the medical evidence, Dr. Hall believed his fiance, and so he turned her fortress. He turned her apartment into a fortress. He literally bought new locks for all the windows, the doors, manual locks that could only be unlocked from the inside. I did all kinds of mechanical locks so that it wasn't just an electronic system. It was a manual system that a key or a code could override. And so after he did all this, she was still being raped. They were still coming into her apartment and raping her. And there was no evidence of a break-in. So John Hall became suspicious, and he placed hidden cameras inside his fiance's apartment without her knowledge, I guess. Anyway, to his horror, he discovered how they were doing it. She was being hypnotized in her sleep to get up and unlock the door. When someone would knock specifically 3 times or 4 times or however many times, they'd come to the door, they'd knock. She was awakened by the stream of energy, kept in theta state, and electromagnetically hypnotized to get up and go unlock the door so they could come in and rape her.
Yeah, that's all true. Every bit of it.
Yeah, all true. Yeah. Yeah. Mega programming. That's suicide programming. Although they can make it also look like a suicide, like they probably did John McAfee. They could just hit you with ELF waves, electromagnetic low frequency waves, and you're so drowsy, you're knocked out into a state of sleep, and then just have somebody come in and hang you. Yeah. Any normal person would wake up, but because you're
wasn't he found hung in a jail cell in another country? Was that the case?
He was found hung down the street from me. I was in Barcelona seeking asylum from the Spanish government, and his jail cell was Bryan 2, Bryan number 2, and that was the name of the jail cell, and that's where they hung him. He was just down the street from me. I didn't even know it, and we were both in Spain at the same time. He just happened to be in jail. And so when they hung him, I fled because I had already been beaten up and attacked so many times in Spain that I knew I wasn't going to get any more help. So I just fled the country. And went to Ecuador and other places. No one would help me. I went everywhere. No one would help me. So now I'm just trying to get the medical treatment. I get medical treatment and get out of the country. I'm trying to get back to Cuba. I was trying to get to Venezuela, but there's a war going on now. That's not going to happen. So now I'm trying to get back to Cuba. I don't know what else to do. The Russian embassy and the Chinese embassy stopped taking in America. They stopped taking my phone calls over 3 years ago. Longer than that, really. The Chinese, the Russian embassy longer than that. So between 3 and 4 years, they just stopped. They won't even talk to me. So there's no chance to get any help from the embassy. So I have to call foreign embassies. Overseas, Russian embassies overseas begging for help, including ones that I interviewed with when I was in their country. But I'm not getting any help from them, so I don't know what to do. I'll try to go back to Cuba as soon as I get the medical treatment. But it's called Medical COINTELPRO for a reason. So this is not going to get better, people. It's going to get worse. Anyone tells you it's getting better, they're a perp, they're lying to you. Well, they don't know what they're talking about, one of the two. Okay? It's not going to get better. It's going to get so much worse. Literally, right now as we speak, National Guard troops are quietly moving into every large American city. What's going to happen is there's going to be an implosion of the economy. It's how they're going to financially reset the economy by collapsing the economy. Okay, it's going to look like it's just the dollar failed. Well, it failed, but it was planned to fail. That's what they wanted. Okay, and then it's going to be America's going to become like the movie Mad Max and Road Warrior. It's going to be really bad, and they're going to secure those troops are going to secure important buildings in each city. They're already moving in. It's all on the internet right now. They're quietly moving in all these National Guard troops. What's going to happen, I think, is this. The United Nations, through some special resolution, is going to deputize those National Guard soldiers to where they're not going to be National Guard soldiers under the American Constitution. That's why they passed that treaty at the UN recently. They can do that now. They can, under a medical emergency or some type of catastrophe, they could take over. The laws of the UN supersede the American Constitution now, and the Constitution of other countries. So they're going to deputize those National Guard soldiers, and they're going to start wearing blue hats. They're going to be UN soldiers in every American city. They're going to take over America that way. The only thing you can do is get out. There's nothing else you can do. If you don't get out, you're going to be trapped. You're going to close the borders. You're not even going to be able to cross state lines without special permits. You have just maybe 2 years, 3 years at most to get out. Or you never will. And you'll die here. All right. It's nice talking to you, Dan.
Hey, Brian, thank you for taking time and coming on here tonight. And
Okay.
you take
And
care
send
of
me a
yourself.
link to the send me a link to the recording.
I sure will. Okay.
All right, talk to you.
All right. Let me get this recorded stopped.
And that's it. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.